Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Talk Education. This is the second movie in a series in which we are building out a network architecture. In the first movie, we created a network architecture diagram, and then we installed pfSense, which is going to act as our router. And then in this movie, what we're going to do is install Kali Linux, which is one of the machines that's going to be on the production network, and we will use it to access our pfSense router. So let's get started. I wanted to show you the network diagram one more time, just so you have a feel as to what it is we're trying to accomplish. So we have our internet connection here. I have a cable modem that's in my house, and then I have a Wi-Fi router. I am connected by Ethernet to the Wi-Fi router, and then what we're going to do is we're going to run Oracle VirtualBox. The first thing we installed was pfSense. This is really good routing software. It is a unified threat management system, or it can be, depending upon the software that you install. And then we're going to have three areas in this network. The first area that we're going to start out with is going to be this production net here, and we'll install Kali Linux right here on the production side of the network. Okay, just a quick refresher on what's going on here with pfSense, and then we'll dive into a little tiny bit of TCP/IP version 4. We'll maybe talk about v6 later. I might do a movie or two on v6. It's quite a bit more complicated than v4, and there's really no need for it in this arena, but it is worth knowing about. Now, TCP/IP version 4, you can see here that I have what's called a WAN link. That stands for Wide Area Network. And then my cable modem has given the address 192.168.1.38/24 to me. So this is the WAN link address that I have for pfSense. It also gave me a v6 address here. I also have a LAN link. And by default with pfSense, the LAN link, local area network, is 192.168.1.1. These are both /24. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing I want you to know about is with Linux, Linux gives a name, basically initials, letters, and a number to different devices on the system. And so we have an Ethernet adapter here titled EM0, and we have another Ethernet adapter, EM1. We're going to make two more of these in just a minute. You remember that when we went into and configured this, let me show you this configuration real quick. We go to settings, and I want to refresh your memory that under network, we set up adapter 1 for bridged adapter, adapter 2 is IntNet, adapter 3 is IntNet 2, and adapter 4 is IntNet 3. So we are looking at this here. It knows about the other adapters, but we don't have anything assigned just yet. So that's the next part of this. Now on to a real quick little IPv4 quick primer. So here's our network again. This is the network diagram that I created and showed you in previous movies. Now the thing that we're looking at is we've got pfSense here, and we're going to make it look at three different networks. Kali Linux and the Windows Server and a Windows 10 box are going to live up here on 1.1. And then we'll put the honeypot on 3.1, and then our LAMP server on 2.1. Let me show you the layout here and a quick v4 primer. So TCP/IP version 4 consists of 4 octets, octet 1, 2, 3, and 4. And within those octets, you can have decimal numbers, which is what we're accustomed to looking at, or they are actually converted to binary numbers. So what I've done is I have created a little Excel function here equals des to bind A3. So des means decimal, bind means binary. We're saying convert decimal to binary cell A3. And so when we do that, that's what we get. So it's telling you that this number, 192, is 11 followed by 6 zeros in binary. And so everything actually gets rendered in binary. It's just that decimal is easier for us to look at. Now we've denoted that the production network is going to be 1.1. The DMZ is going to be 2.1. And the honeypot is going to be 3.1. And then these are their respective binary numbers just so you can see how that's converted. So the number 1, this is actually 7 zeros, and then 1 is worth 1 point in binary. The number 2 is 6 zeros, a 1 and a 0. So 1 0 gets 2 points in binary. And then the number 3 is 2 plus 1 added together. That's 6 zeros, 1 1 in binary. Now let's talk about this CIDR notation real quick. CIDR notation stands for Common Internet Domain Routing. And what it means is that we can have a shorthand way. It's called a prefix. We put that on the end of the IP address. And what it knows about then, or it's stipulating that we have a 24-bit subnet mask. So this is 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, and 8 zeros. This is a 255, 255, 255, 0 subnet mask. Where's it getting 255 from? Well, if you recall, we start counting from the right to the left. So this first bit is worth 1 point if it's turned on. The second bit's worth 2 points, 4 points, 8 points, 16 points, 32 points, 64 points, and 128 points. When the whole thing is added up, when all the bits are turned on, it equals 255. When they're turned off, it equals 0. And then you can see here that anything in between can make up anywhere between 0 and 255. So that's the idea behind the binary. Now we're going to go get the latest and greatest version of Kali Linux. I'm out at kali.org here, kali.org. And this is, I love this company. It's called Offensive Security. They are masters of several highly sought-after cybersecurity certifications, the most popular of which is called the Offensive Security Certified Pen Tester, the OSCP. It's a pretty difficult cert to get. And then they are responsible for developing Kali Linux, which is a Debian a fork. And so now they have what's called Kali Purple, so they've gone into the offensive world. They used to be strictly, I said offensive, I meant defensive. They've gone into the defensive world. They used to be in the offensive or the red team world with just Kali Linux. Now they've gone into the defensive world with Kali Purple. So this is good stuff. It's very good to know, and I like Kali Linux a great deal. I'm going to download it. I get taken to a download page. You can see here that they have a ton of different downloads that you can do. The one we're interested in would be, of course, virtual machines. So it takes you to a new page, and you have your choice of 64-bit or 32-bit. You can choose VMware, VirtualBox, Microsoft Hyper-V, or QEMU. Now, what is QEMU? Well, it is a virtualization product that's open source. The place where I've encountered it is with a Type 1 hypervisor called Proxmox. We have this running in our school, and it's running a couple of Windows servers. And when you're running Windows servers inside Proxmox, it uses QEMU to show you the server interface so that you can go in there and manage it. So that's how I know QEMU. And QEMU is another virtualization product. We're going to download VirtualBox 64. I'm going to put it in D, Software, Linux, Kali 2023. You can see that it comes down with a 7-zip file. I've already downloaded it. It's pretty good size. It's almost 3 gig. And then we have to unzip that. So I'm going to pause the movie and bring you up to the actual Windows Explorer so that we can unzip that. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, here's the Windows Explorer. And I'm going to right-click and say Show More Options, 7-zip, Extract Here. Right-click, Show More Options, 7-zip, Extract Here. And it takes it a minute to extract. It's a fairly big file here, so there's a lot going on. I'm going to put this on hold until it's fully extracted. I do want to point out to you that the thing you're getting here is this VDI. This is the big guy that we're looking for when we go ahead and run this inside Oracle VirtualBox. Okay, we're all done unzipping, and I'm going to go into the folder. It creates a folder here. I'm going to go into this folder, and I've got a couple of things here. So I've got the VDI, and I've got the VBox. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double-click the VBox file. VDI stands for VirtualBox Disk Image, and this is actually the image that we're going to load up. But I'm going to load this guy up, and it's going to show up in VirtualBox as a pre-configured machine. So I double-click it here, and it shows up in VirtualBox here. On the right-hand pane now, you can look down through here and see the configuration, what it's given us. For example, I've got 2 gig of memory, 2 processors. It gave it a name. It's a Debian operating system, 64-bit, video memory, and so forth. The only thing we're really concerned about is this guy here. It's set for NAT, and we actually want to set it for IntNet. That's something that we're going to have to pay attention to, because as you'll recall, if I'm looking at the drawing, this is the 1.1 network. So we've got to be aware of that. So I go into settings. I'm going to just check what they've done here. Under advanced, they gave us the bidirectional description. They put in a description for us, which is really cool. No disk encryption is turned on. Under system, we can see the hard disk is at the top boot order. The CD drive is at the second order. Display, we didn't do anything with display. Remote is not turned on. Recording's not turned on. Although if you're an aspiring YouTuber, you could record the screen. Storage is pretty interesting. Now, we've got that VDI sitting out there, so we really don't need anything in the CD tray here. Audio is left turned on, which is good. Network is what we have to change. So we don't want it to be set to NAT, which is not good because it would effectively be bypassing our pfSense firewall. What we want to do is we want to set it to IntNet. So I go to internal network, IntNet without any numbers after it. That is the 1.1 network. Serial ports, none. USB is set to 1. I'm going to set it to 2 and then click OK. We're going to start the machine. I'm going to put you on hold for a minute because this installation takes a little bit. So here's what the installation looks like. I'll minimize these 2 things so you can see a little bit better. There we go, and it's going to right-size the screen for us. Now it's reading this VDI, so it already has all the information that it needs to boot up. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and maximize this screen, and I'm going to log in. Now I am not a fan of this big nose view here in the new Kali maps, so I'm going to type in Kali is the login name, and Kali is the password, just like before. And so it logs me in, hopefully. Now, it's not very big, is it? So what you can do is you can go under to View, Virtual Screen, and I'm going to resize this thing to something that's a little more convenient for me. So maybe, I don't know, the way that I could check that would be to check my screen size. So what I'll do is I'll minimize this guy, right-click my screen, go to Display Settings, and here they are right here, and find out what size my screen is. And the scale is what? There it is. My display resolution is 1920 by 1080. So I'll go back to my VirtualBox environment here, right here. I'll go to View, Virtual Screen, 1980 by, what was that, 1020? I think it looks like this is the biggest one I can go with. Beautiful. That looks a lot better. Now, I do not like this funny, weird-looking nose thing. I'm not a big fan of that. And see if I can change this. Oh, it changed the screen for me. That's fine. If you right-click this and go to Desktop Settings, you're going to see a few of the different ones that you can put in here. Some of them are busy. Like this one's pretty busy. I guess it's kind of cool. Some of you guys might like it. This one is the Kali purple logo. This one's pretty underscaled. I'm going to go with this. I'm not a big fan of this logo here, but that's okay. It's a little boxy for me. So now we have Kali Linux running. The main thing here now that we want to do is we want to go in and we want to configure pfSense. And so I'm going to click the Firefox browser here. I'm not a big fan of Firefox. I like Brave really well. That's the one that I use. I'm not going to take the time to install it. Firefox comes natively with Kali, so it's fine by me. Drag this over so you can see a little bit more of it. And Firefox has destination pages that are already loaded into it. You've got the bookmarks here. that are pointed to different areas of offensive securities websites in Kali Linux, and that's fine. What I want to do now is I want to go out to 192.168.1.1, and that is going to be the pfSense router. I'm going to click. You can see I've got a security risk here. Firefox is telling me this is bad. I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to accept the risk and continue. Now, the default Kali login is admin, or the default pfSense login, I'm sorry, it's admin, and I think it's pfSense. Let's try that. Sure enough, I'm not going to save this. Now, what you get with pfSense is a wizard. So you can go through the welcome wizard here, like this. It's telling you about support. It allows you to you can give it a different host name. You can give it a domain name if you want. This is not anything we need to be worried about right now. Now, you could set up primary DNS servers and secondary DNS servers, and that might be something that you want to do, like you might want to point to, for example, Google is 8.8.8.8, and it has a secondary address of 8.8.4.4. I don't really need that in this case. I'm just going to wipe it out because my home router is doing all the DNS for me. And then you can see that we've got a network time protocol server, and this is our time zone. Let's change that. I'm going to change that to Mountain Time here. So let me see if I can find that. There we are right there. I'm going to change it to US Mountain Time and click Next. We're going to allow DHCP in this. We're going to do DHCP in all of our different settings here. This is for the WAN interface, by the way. We're currently configuring the WAN interface. Now, I would not do this if I was on a regular production network. I would give it a static IP address, but since this is behind my home router, my cable modem, and my Wi-Fi router, I'm going to leave it using DHCP. This is going to be my LAN IP address. That's the default subnet mask of a 24. They're showing you CIDR prefix /24, but the notation here is that it's 255.255.255.0. Click Next. I'm going to change the admin password. I'm going to stick with pfSense. It's fine by me, but we're not required to change it. But you definitely should, especially if this were in a production environment. And then I'm going to reload. So it takes it a minute for it to come back up. And here we are, wizard completed, finish. Now what you get when you do all of this and it finishes up, first of all, you get a EULA. You have to accept the EULA, which is fine. Then you can take the survey if you want. I'm not a big survey guy. And you get these different dashboard pages. These pages may or may not be interesting to you. This one is not super interesting to me, although, maybe you want to keep it. I have no idea. And then the services one is not interesting to me either. So I'm going to click that to make it go away. And then I'm going to I'll keep the system information page. The way to get back to this page anytime you want to is to just click this, and it'll bring you back. Now, it is telling me to change the password in the user manager, so I guess I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to change to a new password. And if you are on a production net, I would absolutely change to a new password here. And then I'll come down here and click Save. Don't save. Good deal. So you can see it's giving you breadcrumbs. System, user manager, user. If I hit the pfSense icon over here, it'll take me home. Love this interface. This is really cool. Okay, so now we have WAN and LAN set up. You can see that under my WAN address, it's 192.168.1.38, just like we showed you in the actual pfSense screen. 1.1 is the default here. This is Class C reserved addressing, which is very good. I like that a lot. And it's got a gigabit Ethernet connection. Everything's cool here. You could connect, just check to make sure that you're getting out. So I always go to some site I don't go to very often, like Disney.com, for example, and just make sure that I can hit the site. and it looks like it's going to work okay. Takes a minute for it to bring all this stuff over. Beautiful. Everything's working network-wise. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to add our other two interfaces. Let me bring up the drawing for you. So this is .1. The DMZ is .2. The honeypot is .3. So we want to create those interfaces. Now the way that you do that is you go into Interfaces, Assignments. And you can see here that we've got EM0 is WAN, EM1 is LAN. We're going to add two more. So I'm going to click Add here. I'm going to rename it from OPT1. That's option 1. I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to go ahead and enable this interface, and I'm going to call it DMZ. The IP4 configuration type is going to be DHCP. In reality, we'll probably give these a static address, but that's okay for now. And we'll leave the IPv6 configuration type alone for now. Maybe I'll come back through and do a little bit more on that. We don't need to do anything with DHCP client configuration, reserved networks. We just click Save. That interface has now been saved, and it's going to show up in the list of interfaces. It's going to show up with two words, DMZ and EM2. Remember that in Linux, we're using these letters plus numbers to designate a device on the system, and so the DMZ is EM2 network interface. I'm going to apply the changes. Okay, next thing we do, we've got this all applied successfully. Everything's cool. If we go to interfaces again now, we're going to see DMZ sitting out there. So that's good. It's all been applied. And I'm going to show you that pfSense knows about this as well on the pfSense interface. We're going to create one more for the honeypot. So I go to Assignments. I'm going to click Add, and this will be EM3. And let me see. I'm going to click Option 2 here, Enable the interface, and I'm going to call this honeypot. IP configuration type is DHCP. We don't need to do anything else. We come down here and save. Click Apply Changes. Okay, changes are applied. We've got our interfaces here, WAN, LAN, DMZ, and honeypot. Now here's the thing. We want to go in and configure DHCP as well. So we're going to go to Services, DHCP Server. Now you'll notice here that the only thing we have right now is the LAN interface. It's not refreshing the DMC service here. So I think what I'm going to do is power down the machines and power them back up, and I'll show you what I'm looking for here. I want to see those other two interfaces showing up here in the pfSense, the main router that's running. So what I'm going to do is power both things down and then restart them. You can do that by clicking File, Close, and then select Power Off the Machine. Now if you say Save the Machine State, it will remember where we were at, but I'm going to get a clean slate here, so I'll power that down, and I will power down the pfSense box, and then I'm going to restart everything by going to VirtualBox. I'm going to power pfSense up first. I wanted to show you that as we're booting pfSense here, you can see that it's bringing up these other interfaces now. So it takes a little bit longer once you have created these new interfaces, get it all written into the system. Okay, and you can see here now we've booted back up. We've gotten the same stuff as before, 1.38, 1.1, but now we have the DMZ and the honeypot out here, and that's a good sign because now the interfaces are live and well, and this is normal. This is something that you should be seeing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up Kali Linux. All right, so here we are. Now, let's see. I've still got my interfaces here, WAN, LAN, DMZ, honeypot. Everything's cool. If I click the pfSense thing to go home, you can see the interfaces sitting out here. These two, DMZ and honeypot, have 0000 associated with them. And I think that's because I didn't key in an address for them. So I'm going to come in here and key in an address. And I set this for IP configuration type DHCP. That's not really what I want. I'm going to give this a static DHCP address. I'm going to come down here, and we recall that when we're talking about the DMZ, we're talking about the .2 address. So I'm going to type in 192.168.2. 2.1. This is going to be our 2 subnetwork. And I always forget this. They put this way over here to the side. I wish they would have put this closer so you can see it real quickly, but I'm going to change this to the 24/24 and click Save. And then Apply Changes. You can see here that it says don't forget to adjust the DHCP server range, so we'll have to do that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the honeypot. I'm going to change this from DHCP to static. I was thinking about the DHCP range that we have to key in, and that's why I set that there, but that's not correct. 192.168.3.1, which is going to be our honeypot, and we'll set this to the 24 as well, and click Save, and then click Apply Changes. Now that we have all those, the way that we can validate it first is we can go home after this is done applying. We can go home here and we can see that they have their addresses 1, 2, and 3, which looks very, very good. Now we go to Services, DHCP Server. I'm going to go to DMZ and I'm going to enable this thing. Now the thing here, it's not really hard to do. The only thing you want to do is enable it for a range of devices. When you're thinking about this stuff, you know that you're going to maybe have servers or maybe a printer or an IoT device or something like that that needs doesn't get DHCP. It gets a static IP address. So we're going to want to save some room for that. Now, I like what I've been going through one of these classes here, and I like what this guy did. He said, you know what, when I'm doing this kind of stuff here, and I know I'm not going to use a lot of addresses, I just set everything in between 100 and 199 for DHCP, which means that when this gives out something to a machine, it's going to give out an address in between 100 and 199, which is great because you can recognize it as having come from DHCP. But if we needed to give an address in a static range, we have clear from .2 all the way up to 99 here, and then in the opposite side from 200 to 254, we can give addresses out to the static devices. So that's really good. We don't need to mess around with any of the rest of this, so I'll save. And then we're going to go in and do exactly the same thing for DHCP server. We'll click Services, DHCP server. We'll go to honeypot. We'll enable the honeypot. And in this case, we're going to add 3, 192.168.3.100 to 192.168.3.199. Now, in a production environment, you wouldn't do that. What I generally do is I save 20 addresses or so for my servers, devices like that, routers, switches, things like that. And then the rest can go to my DHCP clients. But we're not going to have a ton of DHCP clients on this network anyway, so this is fine. And this is a good way for you to know that something's been assigned a DHCP address. So I click Save. And we let this go away. I go home. Boom, there we go. We're good to go. And then if I show you the, if I come in here and show you, where is it at? Right there. The pfSense interface again. You can see that we're pointed here. If I were to reboot this now, it would show those new addresses. So that's all I've got. What I would do of a day when I was done working on this is I would down the machines in an orderly fashion, file close. You could save the machine state if you like. That's a good way to do it because you don't have to go through everything again just to do that. And so what it'll do is it'll take a snapshot of where you're currently at in your virtual machine, which is a way cool way of doing it. And then I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to shut this guy down because on reboot, what I wanted to do is query those interfaces and let me know that they actually really did populate. That's a very good thing for you to do. The last phase of this would be to bring your pfSense box back up and make sure that those interfaces show up with the correct address. Okay, so I did this real quickly. The thing that you're looking at here is you want to make sure that these interfaces loaded up. This looks super good. We're ready to go on to the next phase of our project. This movie's running a little long. I will talk to you in the next movie. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.